We really did not get along.
In real life?
In real life.
In the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, not every star is treated like royalty. Some are forced to fight for their dignity, their truth, and sometimes their sanity. Eddie Griffin has long stood as one of those warriors. A comedian, actor, and truth-teller, he's never shied away from exposing the dark underbelly of the entertainment industry. But no one expected his latest comments about Malcolm-Jamal Warner to hit this hard. Malcolm, once beloved as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, symbolized Black excellence in mainstream media. But behind the smile and the scripted laughs was a man slowly being cornered by an industry that never truly had his back. Eddie Griffin didn't mince words. He said what many feared but no one dared to say aloud. Malcolm wasn't just being phased out, he was being systematically broken down. Eddie described it as psychological warfare. According to him, Hollywood's powers didn't want Malcolm to succeed as a full, independent creative force. They wanted him to play the role, quiet, agreeable, and smiling. But when he pushed back, when he tried to assert control over his work and identity, the machine turned cold. Projects fell apart. Roles dried up. Offers became insulting. It wasn't about talent, it was about control. And for Eddie Griffin, this wasn't just about Malcolm. He framed it as part of a larger war. A war against outspoken Black creatives. A war that's been going on for decades and leaving casualties the public never sees. Eddie Griffin didn't just wake up one day and start warning people about the entertainment industry. He's been sounding the alarm for over a decade. From stand-up stages to interviews buried deep on YouTube, Eddie has been dropping truth bombs that most people ignored until now. He spoke about the manipulation, the gatekeeping, and the way Hollywood chews up artists and spits them out when they refuse to play along. In multiple interviews, Eddie talked about the pattern. First, they lure you in with praise and opportunity. Then, when you reach a certain level of influence, especially as a Black entertainer, they subtly start to pull the strings. You're offered roles that demean you, contracts that silence you, and situations designed to break your spirit. And when you say no, you're labeled difficult, ungrateful, or washed up. What's chilling is that everything Eddie described is exactly what seemed to happen to Malcolm-Jamal Warner. A rising star with integrity and vision, Malcolm tried to step into roles behind the camera to tell more meaningful stories, and Hollywood pushed back. Doors that were once wide open began to quietly close. The offers slowed, the scripts stopped coming, and soon, Malcolm was left on the outside, looking in on an industry he helped elevate. Eddie warned us. He said there was a pattern, that if someone didn't play by Hollywood's twisted rules, the system would find a way to erase them, not through scandal, but through silence. And with Malcolm, that eerie prophecy started to unfold right before our eyes. For years, Malcolm-Jamal Warner maintained a quiet strength in Hollywood. He didn't chase controversy. He didn't air his grievances loudly. But in his final months of visibility, you could see the weight wearing on him. In podcast interviews and smaller talk shows, he began dropping subtle hints, carefully chosen words that suggested something deeper was happening behind the scenes. He spoke about being boxed in, of being tired of being offered roles that were safe or predictable. He mentioned projects that never saw the light of day, funding that mysteriously dried up, and industry meetings where he was told he needed to be more flexible. But flexible meant compromising his values, playing roles that mocked his identity or minimized his intelligence. Malcolm wasn't just talking about creative differences. He was describing a battle for his own self-worth, a battle he was losing in silence. According to Eddie Griffin, Malcolm confided in him during those months. He was frustrated, exhausted, and felt like he was being erased, piece by piece. Eddie described it as emotional isolation, a tactic the industry uses to wear down anyone who doesn't fall in line. It wasn't about one job or one casting decision. It was about a consistent and deliberate push to marginalize a man who dared to rise above the stereotype. The Malcolm we once saw as Theo, the smart, funny, grounded son of America's favorite dad, was now being pushed out by the same industry that once called him a role model. The worst part, nobody in power said a word. Nobody stepped in. And that silence, it confirmed everything Eddie had warned us about. What Eddie Griffin said about Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just an opinion, it was a confirmation. A tragic, painful validation of a pattern that's repeated itself again and again. Talented Black creatives step outside the mold, and the machine tightens. Eddie has seen it happen too many times. Dave Chappelle, Paul Mooney, Monique, even himself. And now, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's name has been added to the list. The industry doesn't always cancel you with scandal. Sometimes it cancels you with silence, with no calls back, with no new roles, with no more opportunities. You fade, not because you failed, but because you refused to bend. And when Eddie recently spoke about Malcolm, there was no bitterness in his voice, only sorrow. Because he knew this wasn't just a career setback. It was a system doing exactly what it was built to do. Protect itself by silencing those who challenge it. Fans are now beginning to connect the dots. They're rewatching interviews, reading between the lines, and realizing that Malcolm was trying to warn us, too, in his own quiet way. Eddie's public confirmation shattered the illusion. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't ego. It was the ugly truth that no one wanted to face. And maybe that's why this hurts so much. Because we didn't just lose an actor, we lost another voice in a fight that's far from over. A voice that deserved to be amplified, not erased. So the next time you wonder why a talented star suddenly vanishes from your screen, remember, it's not always about talent. Sometimes it's about power. And sometimes the truth doesn't just hurt, it confirms our worst fears.